Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley here with my buddy Chris Williamson. Chris, what do we have for the baseline this week?
Well, Ian, you reported that the Knicks offseason moves will revolve around finding guys that fit with RJ Barrett. What more can you tell us about that?
Right, so I think that's going to be a factor into what the Knicks do this offseason. I don't know where it ranks. I think there are many factors that they will think about, but it at least gives you an indication about how this new regime feels about RJ Barrett, and also maybe a little bit about how they feel about him from a potential trade perspective. If they're thinking of him as they make these offseason moves, it tells you that they value him pretty highly, and it would be unlikely that they move him.
Yeah, it's got to be a big boost for his confidence as well. Looking at the draft, the Golden State Warriors have the number 2 pick, but it looks like they might be interested in trading down. What more can you tell us about that?
I think that a lot of teams are looking at Golden State as a potential trade partner, and I know a couple reporters from The Athletic had reported that they had seen guys at the top of the draft, top 5 projected picks, work out, including James Wiseman. But I also know that they have been in close contact with players that are projected more towards, 8 to 10 and in that range. They are doing their homework on those guys that are lower in the draft and potentially looking to trade into those spots.
Ian Begley, first-time caller, but a long-time listener. Congrats on becoming the Adrian Wojnarowski of the New York Knicks. The NBA looks like it's going to get started pretty soon, and they're going to have a shortened season. It doesn't look like fans are going to be in games anytime soon. Do you think this is going to impact how Leon Rose goes about building out this roster, where he may not have to be concerned about putting fannies in the seats?
John, thanks so much, man. You've made Knicks Film School a daily destination for the Knicks fan with your information and your writing, your takes. I'm there every morning, so everyone else should be too. You're out of your mind with that Woj comparison, but nonetheless, it is appreciated. This condensed schedule and no fans, I have to think that it factors into the decision-making with the Knicks. But, by and large, we had been hearing for weeks and weeks that the Knicks were going to try to put a team together that would compete. But more recently, I'm starting to hear that they aren't dead set on that path versus playing the young guys and playing for the next year's draft path. That's something of note as we move forward here and get closer to the NBA draft.
This week's guest is Matt Babcock, a former NBA agent who's now a draft analyst for Babcock Hoops.
I think if you're looking at pairing somebody with RJ, you need to look at outside shooting, obviously. RJ's more of on ball, aggressive scorer to the hole. With the Knicks specifically, I don't think they should look at fit with RJ as much as just getting some talent in there. They've got a couple nice pieces, but they need talent to get over the hump.
When you look at the point guards in this draft, if you could rank your top 3, who do you have as your top 3 right now?
My top 3 would probably be LaMelo Ball, Killian Hayes, and then I'd probably put Kira Lewis. I like how his game translates. He's got elite speed, really shoots the ball, but the speed and athleticism really sets him apart. I know a lot of people have Tyrese Halliburton. I like him. He's a nice, solid player, really high basketball IQ. I think his physical limitations might hold him back a little bit more than some people that are hyping him up. I think he's going to be naturally more of a complimentary guy, which is valuable. I just see Kyra having a better opportunity of possibly being a lead guy just with that speed.
And Matt, out of all the point guard draft prospects, whose stock has risen this offseason in your mind?
For me personally, it's been Malachi Flynn. We've done a ton of homework on him. I spent some time with him a couple weeks ago in Las Vegas. The kid's just got it. You could look at all these scouting reports on paper. Okay, the guy's 6'1", 185 pounds. He's a little bit on the smaller side, but he checks all the boxes as far as growth mindset, toughness, leadership. To me, he's just the guy that has translatable skills, but his whole approach to the game and life is really going to allow him to succeed. And I put a lot of value and stock into those types of things. And certain teams will surprise you and take guys higher just because it's the guy that they peg. I wouldn't be surprised if Malachi went higher than we're all thinking.
What about a prospect whose stock has fallen a little bit recently?
From the start of the college season, I'd say Cole Anthony has dropped off quite a bit. Came into the college scene. He's one of the top rated players out of high school. We had that injury early on. Everybody kind of doing their homework on him. It seems like it's all been kind of negative. I don't know if he's necessarily a total red flag type character, but he has turned some people off. Where, I mean, I've talked to a number of NBA scouts have kind of said, you know, one way or another, I'm not sure he's our kind of guy. But with that said, he does have a lot of talent. So there's going to be a certain point in the draft, somebody's going to say, you know what, screw it, let's go with the talented kid. So, I mean, we'll see. His stock is somewhat polarizing, though, because of some of those issues.
Time for the post office, and Kristaps Porziņģis posted a video on Twitter of him getting a putback slam against the Knicks without any words or context this week. And he was absolutely roasted on the Knicks Twitter for it, and rightfully so, because, Ian, the Knicks swept them.
Yes, they did, and this kind of just goes to show you how good the organization did in spinning things. Or I always go back to on Porziņģis is, was he really wrong to want to be traded from the Knicks, given where they were as a franchise? I say no. That's just my opinion.
And Mitchell Robinson's trainer was on Instagram this week saying that the Knicks staff is very determined to win ASAP, which I found a little bit surprising.
I love that insight from Marcel Scott. It kind of aligns with what we've been reporting in terms of the Knicks looking to add veterans and be as successful as possible here next season. But, you know, more recently I've gotten word that, you know, I don't think there's been a final decision made about where the Knicks are going to go for next year. I think it's still up in the air. They could go totally young. They could try to add vets.
Florida State prospect Devin Vassell raised a lot of eyebrows when he had a very unorthodox shot in a workout.
So I spoke with Florida State assistant coach Charlton Young, CY. This was at the end of the workout. Vassell was just messing around. He had knocked down like 14 or 15, whatever. And they put it out there, and then people kind of took it as him changing his shot. Coach Young says Vassell has not changed his shot at all. We have a full story on that on SNY.TV with a bigger look at Devin Vassell.
And what a surprise, Ian. KD got into another Twitter beef, this time when it came to the Washington football team being greater than the Cowboys. Then a comedian responded by saying the Knicks are still greater than the Nets, to which Durant responded, any comedian is greater than you. He just cannot get enough of roasting people, Ian.
I love it. I love it. And I think Twitter beef is a little bit strong. He just wanted to crush the guy, and he did it. Keep it going, Kevin. I love your honesty. I love when you clap back at people. Rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Speaking of the Nets, Ian, did you see who's joining the boys in Brooklyn? Amar'e Stoudemire, turning his back on the Garden and going with the black and white. You can laugh and call it the Phoenix Nets, the Brooklyn Suns. I'm calling it a championship combination.
So a couple of things. One, I know that Amar'e in his years in Israel recently had served as a strong mentor to a lot of the young players on those teams, taught those young players a lot about life on and off the court as a professional. So that strikes me as a positive for the Nets that they could have a player of that caliber and that experience level imparting his knowledge. The other thing, though, is like, I know those development coaches in general in the NBA, you know, they work their tail off. They are on call 24 hours a day. The player wants to get shots up in the gym on an off day. They are the coaches who go over there. I'm not questioning if he's going to have that work ethic, if he's committed to it. I'm sure he knows what he's getting into, but it's a very different lifestyle than an all-star NBA player when you talk about being a development coach in the league.
And what?
Last week, we reported that members of the Pacers see Boston's Gordon Hayward as a trade target. After that report, I was told from a few other teams that many teams would have interest in trading for Hayward if Boston were to make him available via trade. Now remember, Hayward has a player option on his deal for next season, so any transaction that sent Hayward out of Boston would probably be a sign and trade.
Right now in our mock draft, I have him taken Isaac Okoro from Auburn, which is not the perfect fit with RJ like we talked about before. It was outside shooting is his swing skill. I just think he's too good of a talent to pass up there. New York's a developing team, and they just need to get some players in the building. And this kid's probably the best athlete top to bottom in the draft. I mean, 6'6", 225, can defend everybody, really knows how to play. And I actually trust his outside shoot. I don't ever think he's going to be like a real versatile, dynamic shooter, but I think he's going to be able to shoot it enough. And so now you look at all his strengths and be like, all right, this is a guy we could work around a little bit.
Interesting you mentioned Okoro, because Bruce Pearl had said that the Knicks have been very inquisitive with his staff about Okoro, and you know, he thought, obviously he's biased, but he thought that Okoro under Tom Thibodeau would be a great fit.
There's certain situations, I think Isaac can guard fours, he can guard twos, ones. I mean, he's gonna be all over the place. I mean, with Thibs, that's his kind of guy, a guy that's willing to be scrappy and defend everybody. From that standpoint, being a perfect fit for the Knicks.
be sure, if you're a Knicks fan, to check out this latest book, Our Last Season, from Harvey Arden. Harvey writes about a legendary Knicks fan and his relationship with that fan. And if you know Harvey, you know how well he's chronicled the Knicks over the years. If you're a younger Knicks fan and you're not familiar with Harvey's work, tremendous book. Really read everything he's written on the Knicks, but this is tremendous. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.